Laziness has a bad reputation. People treat it like a character flaw, a moral failure, or proof that someone just doesn't want success. If you don't act fast enough, don't work hard enough, or don't stay motivated, the label appears quickly: lazy. But science tells a very different story. Laziness isn't simply about being unmotivated. It's often about how the brain manages energy, stress, emotion, and risk. Most of the time, what we call laziness is not a lack of effort. It's a signal. The brain doesn't randomly refuse to work. It avoids tasks for reasons often logical ones from a biological perspective. The human brain evolved to save energy, not waste it. For most of history, energy meant survival. Food was limited. Danger was real. If you wasted effort, you risked exhaustion or death. So the brain learned a rule: don't spend energy unless the reward is clear and necessary. That system still runs today, even though modern life rarely requires physical survival effort. When you feel lazy, your brain might simply be asking, is this worth the energy? Is this safe? Is this urgent? Is this rewarding? If the answer feels unclear, motivation drops. Another key factor is dopamine, the chemical linked to motivation. Dopamine isn't about pleasure, it's about anticipation. It pushes you to act when your brain predicts a rewarding outcome. If a task feels boring, overwhelming, uncertain, or emotionally uncomfortable, dopamine levels stay low and starting feels hard. That's why you can feel lazy about studying or working, but suddenly have energy to watch videos, play games, or scroll your phone. It's not that you can't act. It's that your brain sees one option as rewarding and the other as costly. What we often call laziness is actually task resistance. Resistance appears when a task feels too big, too vague, too demanding, too risky, or emotionally heavy. The brain reacts the same way it reacts to threats by delaying, avoiding, or freezing. Fatigue plays a huge role too. When mental energy is low, the brain protects itself by reducing effort. You might want to act, but your system says, not now. That isn't weakness. It's resource management. Stress and anxiety also disguise themselves as laziness. If a task triggers fear of failure, judgment, embarrassment, or pressure, the brain treats it like danger. Avoidance becomes a form of emotional self-defense. From the outside, it looks like procrastination. Inside, it feels like protection. Perfectionism is another hidden cause. When you feel you must do something perfectly, starting becomes scary. If the first step already feels like pressure, your brain delays it. The result looks like laziness, but it's actually fear of not doing it right. There's also something called decision fatigue. Every choice you make drains mental energy. By the time you reach an important task, your brain may simply be tired of choosing. So instead of starting, it defaults to easier, familiar behaviors like scrolling, snacking, or zoning out. Environment matters more than people think. If a task feels unclear, boring, or disconnected from meaning, motivation collapses. The brain needs either reward, urgency, curiosity, or emotional relevance. Without one of these, action feels pointless. Modern life makes laziness more likely, not because people are weaker, but because easy stimulation is everywhere. Your phone, social media, games, streaming, they all offer instant dopamine with zero effort. Compared to that, real tasks feel slow and heavy. The brain chooses the path of least resistance. But here's the important part. Laziness is rarely the real problem. It's usually a symptom of something else. Mental overload, low energy, unclear goals, fear of failure, boredom, lack of meaning, emotional exhaustion, or a task that feels too big to start. Calling yourself lazy often makes things worse. Shame doesn't create motivation, it creates stress. Stress increases avoidance. Avoidance reinforces the belief that you're lazy. It becomes a loop. The truth is, most people aren't lazy. They're overwhelmed, tired, under-rewarded, or mentally saturated. So what actually helps? Motivation doesn't come from yelling at yourself. It comes from reducing resistance. Instead of forcing huge effort, the brain responds better to small, safe entry steps. Not finish the project, but open the file. Not work out, but put on shoes. Once motion begins, energy often follows. The brain also responds to clarity. When the next step is obvious, starting becomes easier. Laziness often disappears when tasks become specific and simple. Rest matters too. Real rest, not endless scrolling. The nervous system needs recovery to regain drive. If you never fully unplug, your motivation slowly drains. And sometimes, what looks like laziness is actually a lack of meaning. It's hard to feel motivated toward things that don't feel personally important. When actions connect to values, curiosity, or growth, motivation rises naturally. So, laziness isn't proof that you're broken. It's information. It tells you something about your energy, your environment, your emotions, or the way a task is structured. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" a better question is, "What is making this feel hard to start?" When you stop treating laziness like a moral failure and start seeing it as a signal, things change. Motivation becomes less about forcing yourself and more about working with how your brain actually functions. And maybe laziness isn't the enemy. Maybe it's just your mind saying, "Not like this. Try a smarter way."